5.5 years ago, throughout the state of Minnesota, something peculiar began to happen. Introverts and nerds started crawling out of their parents' basements to voluntarily make contact with unknown life forms. Life forms who were luckily also introverts and a little nerdy themselves. People who had never known each other started to talk, eventually started to meet. No, not just on forums and Facebook, but in real live person. The zombie apocalypse, you ask? Even better, the word in the underground was that a most unusual man was to run for president. But wait, these people hated politics a lot. The lying, the empty promises, the ever-encroaching government, distinctions without any difference, always two sides of the same coin. So when word started circulating that a politician who dared to talk about forbidden topics such as the Federal Reserve and our inability to afford unconstitutional wars, and above all, had consistently upheld his oath to the Constitution, was going to run for the highest office, tens of thousands of people who had previously checked out of politics in disgust sat up and took notice. Those early headwaters formed the streams and tributaries that formed the river, and when it all came together, we saw some modest success in 2008. But 2008 was not the end point. That message flowed stronger, farther and wider each year. You know, we used to joke about how we needed to clone Ron Paul. But you notice we don't joke about that anymore. We've done it. Where there was one man carrying the message alone, there are now thousands, perhaps millions of us working together to spread the message that we live better when we live free. So where did these thousands and thousands of clones come from? Not all from their parents' basements, no. Someone somewhere told each of them the truth, patiently and in small doses, and opened their eyes. We will be hearing a lot this week about our nation's leaders. But what are leaders? Leaders are not in Congress or the state legislators. Congressmen and legislators are followers. They're representatives. They will change their position to fit the population, most of them. The real leaders are in urban neighborhoods and suburbs, rural townships. They are the ones who are discussing ideas with their coworkers, family, and neighbors. Now, scientists at the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute have found that when an idea is held by less than 10% of society, its growth is slow and difficult. But when just 10% of a population hold an unshakable belief, their belief will always be adopted by the majority of that society. The real leaders in their neighborhoods are those who will get us to that 10% tipping point. Those are the leaders. And we have been seeing changes. You've been seeing them locally. We've seen it with the issue of the Federal Reserve. We saw the issue of the Federal Reserve quickly go from 0 to 10%, then tip into overwhelming disapproval of that secretive body in the last few years. We even saw the changes this week at the RNC. While we were beat with the political stick in the Rules and Credentials committees, there was acceptance of some of Ron Paul's ideas on the platform committee, from sound monetary policy to more secure, more humble foreign policy. The ideas are succeeding. And of course, there are some areas like indefinite detention where we need to continue to educate. But our goal is not political power. It is not our goal. Our goal is to live free because we know that means we live better. Politics is something we do defensively and out of necessity. When political power becomes the goal, we have lost the mission. And in this movement, everyone has a different taste for their level of political involvement. For some, that level is 0, and I understand. For some people, they believe we need to take over the party, and I understand that too. Some people think if we control the system, we can use it to our benefit. But government power is like Tolkien's one ring that controls them all. Some Republicans think we can use power only for good. We know better. We know power corrupts. Our goal is not to win elections version of what is good. Our goal is to throw the one ring into the fire so we can impose on people our of the Constitution. But to even attain that goal, we must do as Ron Paul has sought to do, and we must change the hearts and minds of our neighbors. The political end will follow. If we focus only on the politics, and we try to force that system to fit our paradigm, but the people are not ready, we will be disappointed. However, as we work to change the hearts and minds of our neighbors, the politics will happen. So in Minnesota this year, where we won 80% of the national delegates to the RNC, we weren't successful because we fired up the campaign last summer and worked hard. That too. But we were successful because we came together 5 years ago. We networked, we organized, we began sharing the message of liberty with our neighbors and coworkers and friends. We were adding them to our networks. We've been working together ever since. And were we working on politics all the time? Not necessarily, some. But we were also getting together for Austrian meetups. My friend Nick Ludwig's a fantastic Austrian evangelist. We were setting up ham radio clubs. We were buying and splitting sides of beef. We were drinking raw milk from each other's farms. We were helping each other with our businesses. And if we weren't networking in person, we were networking on Facebook. Because the overriding thing we had in common is that we wanted to live free. And as Ron Paul says, freedom brings people together. We may run for our city council or township board, not to exercise political power, but to recapture liberty for ourselves and our neighbors. We teach as we campaign. And we have encouraged local people in Minnesota to run for local offices, not to exercise political power, but to take back local and personal liberty. There may be only one inimitable Ron Paul, but some of these candidates might turn out to be reasonable facsimiles. Some won't. Some won't. Some will get a high off the power and climb the ladder for its own sake. But some will stay humble and keep in their sights that the goal is to live free. Each of us needs to always keep the principles of liberty in mind when supporting candidates. This movement is not about winning any single election. Regardless of who that person is, if they are going in the wrong direction, we must never be afraid to call them out on it.